Hi, my name is Corey Merchant, and I'm the author of the Connected Classroom column for the NYSADA newsletter. And what I'd like to do today is just very briefly give you an introduction to Google Drive and how it works, and how it can reinforce instruction for you as a teacher in general, but also as an art teacher. The only thing you need in order to use Google Drive is a free Google account. If you do not have one already, it's very easy to make one, and you will immediately get access to all of the Google apps, including a pretty handy calendar, Gmail, which is a free email address, and many, many more. So once you've made an account, or once you've logged into the account that you already have, you'll notice that you have access to Google Apps from pretty much anywhere on the Google website. You'll see that along the top you have access to Google+, which is Google's social network. This grid of 9 small squares is the shortcut to get to the other Google apps that you have access to. The bell is an icon that will display your notifications if somebody posted something on your Google+, or worked or commented on a document that you've shared with them. They will show up in your notifications. And then, of course, your profile picture, which links to your personal profile. But for now, we're focusing on the apps. So if we click on this grid icon, it will bring up a list of some of the apps we have available to us. You'll notice that there's also an option to open up more apps, and you can see the entire list laid out in front of you of everything you have available to you for free. But right now, all we're going to talk about is Drive. So once you've opened up your Drive, if you've already experimented with it, you'll see your documents that you've worked on here. But if you've never used Drive before, you probably see a blank screen like this. But just a special note, you might also get an advertisement that asks you to download Google Drive to your computer. You can if you want. It's free. It might make things marginally easier, but I use Google Drive almost exclusively, and I just don't really see a purpose to downloading it to my computer when it works so nicely right in the browser. So what you'll see on your home page is a few things of note. You have a Create button, and that will be your primary way of making new documents in a variety of formats. There's an Upload button, and I'll touch on uploading again at the end. There's an Activity button, which will open up a task pane, which shows you if you've shared a document with students or colleagues, any activity they've done on those documents will pop up here. You can arrange your documents in a list or a grid, and there's also this kind of ubiquitous gearbox, which will open up your settings from pretty much anywhere you are within Google Drive. So let's talk about creating. When you click on Create, it opens up a menu with all of the different formats you have available to you, including the document, which think Microsoft Word, or Pages if you use a Mac, just a regular word processor. Presentation, which takes the place of a PowerPoint, or on a Mac, a Keynote presentation. Spreadsheets, think Excel, and then Forms. There's also an option to make a drawing, or to create a new folder, but I'm not really going to talk about those during this video. Right now I'd like to focus on making a document. So when you click on that red Create button and you select Document, what you'll have is a window that probably looks pretty similar if you have experience using programs like Microsoft Word, OpenOffice, or any other word processor. Still, let's break it down piece by piece. First, in the top left, in our case this little blue document icon will always link you back to your Drive. But what you may have noticed is that when you made a new document, it automatically opens up in a new window, so you can also just minimize that window in order to get back to your Drive. Next to the Documents icon is the file name. Automatically it will be Untitled Document, but you can click on it and rename it whatever you like. Underneath the file name are your menus, your toolbar. Proceeding from left to right, we have print and undo options. We have a document zoom, so you can zoom in or out. You have text styles like headline, paragraph, font, font size, font options, bold, italic, underline, font color. You also have the option to create a hyperlink. Those links will be active, so people looking at your document can click on them and go wherever they are sent to. There is a comment button. There's alignment options and paragraph options and more. So let's talk about comments. With this new kind of curriculum-wide focus on written material, if you have work that your students are handing in to you, they can do that through Google Drive. You can view their documents, you can comment on certain things, and your students can see those comments pop up in real time. This also works if you're sharing rubrics with colleagues, or you're looking for feedback from an administrator. The comments is a pretty powerful feature of Google Drive. And then, of course, there's the share button. So let's pretend like we've just set up a new document. When we click on the share button, this is the dialog window that we see. On first glance, it looks pretty complicated. However, if we break it down into sections, it gets significantly easier. The first thing we see is a link to our document. Anybody who you've added to the list of shared users will have access to that document. This link is kind of long and complex, but the people can use it if they need to. Underneath the link is a list of the people who you shared it with. Of course, right now we've just made a document and shared it, so it's only available to us. At the bottom, on the left, we can insert the email addresses of people we'd like to share it to. So, if you have a list of email addresses for your students, you can share rubrics with them, or presentations, slideshows of images that you'd like them to have a look at. If there are colleagues or people that may or may not be in your Google contacts already, you can simply enter their names and Google will do the rest. But perhaps the most important part of this dialog window is the permissions. As you can see here, for every name that you add, you can change their permissions so that they can edit the document, or maybe they can just comment on it, or maybe they can only view it. Let's say, for instance, you are setting up a rubric that you'd like your studio art students to be able to reference. Well, you wouldn't necessarily want them to have power over going in and making changes to that rubric. You probably wouldn't even want them to be able to make comments. So you can set those as being view only. On the other hand, if you have a rubric that you're sharing with a fellow studio art teacher and you'd like to get their feedback, maybe you'd rather have them have the ability to edit or comment on it. So once all of these users are inserted and their permissions are set, you can hit the send button and it'll send out an email to all of those email addresses telling them this document has been shared with you. You can go here to view it or to make changes to it. Those people that you've shared this document with do not need to have a Google account. That's a very important thing to note. One last thing that I'd just like to briefly mention. I brought up the idea of uploading files earlier, and I'd like to make a special caveat. Now, you might be thinking, I have all these Word documents on my work computer or at home. Google Drive gives me the ability to upload them to my drive, and then I can edit them from anywhere in the world. Well, that's not actually true. If you have a Word document at home or a PowerPoint presentation, you can upload it to your drive, but as long as it stays in the PowerPoint format or the doc format, it will only be stored there. You can open it and view it, you can share it with people and they can look at it, but nobody, including yourself, will be able to make changes to it unless you go in and change your upload settings to convert into Google format. Now, there's really no reason not to do that anyway. You can download all of your documents on Google Drive in any format, including Word document or PDFs. But it is a setting that you have to opt into. You can't just make a Google account, upload a document to Google Drive in a Word format, and then go in and make changes to it. And one last thing that I'd like to note is that Google Drive is available for mobile devices. Here are two views from my personal iPhone where I have rubrics and presentations laid out for all of the classes that I am currently teaching. And I can view those anywhere on my phone. If you had an iPad or an Android device, you have access to those documents and even the ability to change those documents, with some exceptions, from anywhere using your mobile device. So Google Drive, as you can probably imagine, is an extremely powerful tool that can help you reinforce your instructions using new technology in ways that many of your students probably already are comfortable doing. Thanks for watching.